ADHD having the word deficit in it is kind of a misnomer. It's not a lack of attention, it's that I have no control over what I'm paying attention to. We are going to be doing an ADHD Q&A of questions that y'all have asked on the Discord server. We had a thread for it, and I'm just gonna go through them one by one together with you. I brought a friend to keep me company. Look at him! I love him. So for those who missed it, we did an ADHD stream like about a month ago where I talked about my personal experience with ADHD, with diagnosis, very late in life for me. Well, not that late, I guess, but definitely like into my 20s, and deciding to try medication, what the side effects of that have been, what its more beneficial effects have been like, and what my usual symptoms are, as well as how I usually cope with them as someone who doesn't medicate a whole lot. All right, are we cozy? Everyone get comfy, grab your little mug of tea. We're gonna launch into it. Sorry, before we jump right in though, hello, I'm Ying from the future. Or maybe the present? I honestly don't know what the correct terminology would be for this, but anyways, hello, this is current present day Ying. This stream took place like about half a year ago, and a lot of things have changed since then. I've learned a lot of new things, but I still wanted to share this video with you all because it is actually a very important marker on my ADHD journey. I'm basically going through a bit of like coaching through the creator coaching program with Healthy Gamer GG. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but the sessions that I am taking right now are actually subsidized by the Twitch partner program. So that's just one quick disclaimer. I'm still ongoing with my coaching sessions, and so we'll see how it pans out, and I'll be back with an update afterwards. But that was just like the disclaimer I wanted to make, is that this information I'm giving in the stream is actually ever so slightly outdated, and we will have an update in hopefully the near future after the coaching stuff is done. I'm also gonna take a quick about 90 seconds here to do a sponsor insert because, well, we all know by now that like ADHD is this constant experience of trial and error and just throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks. And one of the things that has stuck for me is a process called mind mapping. So there's a class that I found on Skillshare actually that covers this topic really well. It's something that I have learned to do slowly over the years, and I use it a lot for New Year's resolutions. I'm gonna show you a quick picture of what my 2019 resolutions looked like actually back when I did them at the end of 2018. And it really worked well for me actually. It was fun even just as an exercise for me to more intentionally sit down and think about what I wanted to do with the coming year. So anyways, for those of you who don't know, Skillshare is an online learning community, and they've got classes covering just all kinds of topics. The class I mentioned earlier on mind mapping is called Mind Map Mastery. It's taught by Aisha Burrell, who's an instructional designer who also has ADHD and uses mind maps to kind of help sort through all the brain junk, you know how it feels. And I'm hoping it's just a tool that will work for you as well, in the same way that it has worked for me. Skillshare is a great way to get started with any new interest, skill, or hobby. It's totally ad-free, and they have subtitles for all of their classes in like 4 different languages, so why not jump right in, right? The first 1,000 of my subscribers to hit the link in the description or pinned in the comment below will receive a free trial, 30-day trial to Skillshare, so you can start exploring your creativity today. Okay, let's get to the Q&A. What is your criteria for deciding whether or not you are going to take your ADHD meds that day? I end up medicating about twice a week usually, maybe 3 times a week. For me, I'm on an Adderall generic, so it's just amphetamine, I think. Yeah, it's just amphetamine. And my criteria for deciding whether or not I need the medication or whether I can use the medication, first of all, I'm not on extended release. Extended release means that it takes longer for the pill to release the chemicals. I am not on extended release, so this only lasts like a few hours. So that's the first thing to keep in mind, is like the time frame in which I'm taking this medication. What I usually do to decide is I look at my work calendar, and if I have a ton of meetings, I usually will not medicate. What I found is most effective with the medication is I'm able to use like long blocks of time a little bit more efficiently when I'm medicated than when I'm not. So when I'm medicated, it's a lot easier to like send emails and send Slack messages and like coordinate communications, like this kind of thing, which is the crux of most of my job. So Echoes was asking about sleep deprivation, anxiety, or appetite loss. I already have a lot of sleep deprivation problems, so it was really hard for me to know whether or not my continuing sleep deprivation was related to the medication or not. So I'm just gonna rule that one out for myself. Anxiety was actually less. So my anxiety was like notably reduced. One of the main reasons I started to seek out an ADHD diagnosis at all was because for the longest time I had been diagnosed with like moderate anxiety, and I had been going to see a therapist for several years about that. And like no matter what we did, like I tried CBT, I tried talk therapy, like I tried lots of different programs for my anxiety, and it just like wasn't getting better. Finally, when I started to explore my ADHD diagnosis, my CBT, my cognitive behavioral therapy therapist was like, oh my God, like you're considering ADHD? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, I don't know why I didn't think of that for you before, because it explains so many things. And I really hope this is your answer, where anxiety is more of a symptom of your ADHD than it is like its own root cause. And then appetite loss was really severe actually in the beginning. So my first month of medicating, the appetite loss was so bad that I dropped 10 pounds in 1 month, which for me is not a good thing. Like I was at a healthy weight. I was not looking to lose weight, and I still did. So I lost 10 pounds. I'm 5'5" and I weighed 130 pounds pounds going into my medication. Thankfully, I was really worried that I would continue to drop weight because then, you know, it would affect my physical health because I'm a runner, like I run for fun. It's just like what I do to de-stress. I was really worried that I wouldn't be able to keep that up if I wasn't eating properly. And thankfully, the appetite loss issue kind of stopped after the first month. My appetite has mostly stabilized. Do you have any Stim toys? If you could show them to us. I don't do Stim toys. I do click my pens a lot. It probably drove my teammates insane because I would sit there in meetings and just be like, coding ASMR, please keep clicking. My teacher, oh my God, did you guys hear me do that? I'm putting this pen down. I think someone else hearing my symptoms might have been like, no, that sounds like often, but for me, I consider it as sometime. Did you guys notice how I just clicked and unclicked the pen? I'm putting this away. In what ways did getting an official diagnosis, if I recall correctly, you did get one, how did that official diagnosis help you and in what ways did it not? In terms of treatment, my diagnosis didn't help me very much because my healthcare provider doesn't provide therapy for people with ADHD, which like doesn't make any sense to me because I feel like executive function coaching is like exactly what I need the most. Ying asks, what are the downsides of ADHD and what are the upsides of ADHD? The downsides are everything I've listed before. So executive dysfunction, the inability for my brain to shut up. My brain never shuts up. I can't like think. Like my brain is so loud. There's so much going on in here that I can't think sometimes. It also makes it impossible to fall asleep. I would say the good things about it are I'm a very effective multitasker. When I hyperfocus also, I can get a lot of stuff done. I think my ADHD actually makes me a better streamer because I can like jump between contexts so naturally. Like that's sort of what I naturally want to do. Hatamisu asks, do you all often get stuck thinking about things that are upsetting? Oh, yeah, like thought spirals or traps. Like when you get stuck in a thought loop, that's so real. I think for me, that's more of an anxiety issue than an ADHD issue, but absolutely I get stuck in thought loops. And where it's just like, you're thinking about something that like makes you anxious or uncomfortable, but there's nothing you can realistically do about it. So you're just kind of sitting there like thinking about it and stressing yourself out for like no reason. I found that breathing exercises or like taking a walk or something can help break me out of it, but usually it's really hard to like muster the executive function needed to like stand up and go take a walk. How is your relationship with the habit of masking? Have you been trying to stop it since you realized it or just go with it? My masking is a little weird. I mask in a way where I try to spin my ADHD style of expression, I guess. Like I try to make it seem like a style of expression or like my personality because that's what I thought it was for the longest time. I was like, oh, like this is just how I talk. I just found ways of either stalling for time or organizing my thoughts or expressing myself in a certain way where I was like, this is just how I am. You know, like I am just a person with a loud personality, a loud and fast personality. And so masking has been easier for me because I just made it sort of my personal brand that I'm like, oh, I'm just the kind of person that's like, go, 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 go. Like that's just me. But in my mind, that's honestly, up until now, I didn't even think of it as masking as much as it was like just being a good communicator and knowing that like people have different communication styles. So the whole masking thing was like, it's just not something I've thought a whole lot about. And like in retrospect, I'm like, oh, like I'm actually really good at that. I thought it was just, you know, the standard act that everyone did. And so my top concern was always like, how do I make sure that people are comfortable talking to me, that I feel like an approachable person to them, that I am understandable when I talk to them? How do you think impulsivity manifests the most in you? I don't have too big of a problem with impulsivity because of my executive dysfunction. My executive dysfunction tends to stop any impulse for me. So like I'll have an impulse to do something and then I'll be like, I don't have the activation energy to do that. Actually, I started getting more impulsive after I started medicating. So I do a lot more things impulsively now when I'm medicated than before, but I actually take great joy in it because I haven't been able to do that for so many years of my life, that to finally be able to be like, you know, today I feel like opening up FL Studio and trying to make a MIDI track. Like before being medicated, that's something I never would have done that. I would have been like, oh, like that's something I have to like plan for. Designate 2 to 3 hours of my afternoon to like do this thing. And now I'm just like, no, I feel like it. I'm gonna do it. It's not a lack of attention. Like it's not that I am not able to pay attention to things. It's that I have no control over what I'm paying attention to. Do you get the thing where you become obsessed with a new hobby only to completely lose interest? Because this is such a thing. I think it's usually called like adopting a new hyperfixation and then having the hyperfixation kind of go away as quickly as it starts. I don't get it that much, but I think it's really common Tim asks, although you lose focus or switch focus very quickly with ADHD, do you ever lose motivation even though you may do lots of things parallelly? Does it exhaust you physically and psychologically, sometimes switching around so quickly even though you may not want to? Oh, absolutely. I see this a lot at work, switching between like 10 different ongoing conversations where we're trying to organize like 5 different events with like 10 different conversation channels at the same time. I'm capable of doing it, but afterwards I'm like, okay, I need to sleep for 2 years now. When I watch my coworkers work, they're much more likely to like resolve each thread one at a time. They'll be like, okay, let me have this conversation first, and then this conversation, and then this conversation. I'll be like, no, all 10 conversations at the same time. And I'm kind of like that after stream too. Like stream is very energizing in the moment. Like I'm very like, oh yeah, let's have all these conversations at the same time. And then afterwards I'm like, I just spent 4 hours like talking nonstop. I think I'm gonna go take a nap now. Even though I have a conversation with one person, I always trail off a certain topic and then switch to a different topic, then switch back to the original topic. Alex, exactly. There's no such thing as like a linear train of thought. I have loops of thoughts. I have webs of thought going in my brain all the time. I don't know if it's inappropriate to ask. It's not, you're okay. But are there people in your family that have been diagnosed as well, or that you think have undiagnosed ADHD? I suspect because ADHD is so genetic and hereditary, my dad, I think. I actually would be so curious. I really want him to get tested. I also really want my brother to get tested because I feel like he has certain traits of ADHD, and from a young age also, the doctors wanted to diagnose him when he was really young. They were like, we're pretty sure this kid has ADHD and we should probably get it diagnosed. And my parents were like, nah, we're good. We'll just say he has ADHD. My brother doesn't seem to struggle with it to the sort of debilitating degree that I struggle with it. So I'm curious like what his diagnosis would be. Like maybe I have combination type, like maybe he doesn't. Like maybe he's only hyperactive and not inattentive, and you're more likely to like grow out of the hyperactive side as you grow up. Like maybe that's it for him. Are you into collecting anything, like a physical collection? I collect watches. They go in a special box. Let me see, maybe I can grab it. I can't find it. So here's another ADHD trait to share with you all. We have a little problem with object permanence. Out of sight, out of mind. You know, like if I can't see it, it doesn't exist. Do you have any memorable moments of your life that make you go, oh God, I was so obviously not neurotypical. How did they not notice it earlier upon reflecting? Constantly! Half of my dinner conversations with my parents now are like, wow, remember when I did this kind of weird thing as a kid and for some reason you didn't think, oh, that's weird, maybe I should get my kid checked out. Tim asks, if you do, does meditation, or anything can be a meditation, help you control your ADHD better if your meds don't work or you can't take them? Can you even meditate, or is it hard with ADHD? So meditation has helped like a little bit. I felt like no matter how much I did my meditation, that I wasn't getting better at it. After like 3 months, I was like, I feel like I'm just as bad at this as I was in the beginning. So after that, I switched to a more regular yoga practice, and that actually has replaced meditation in my lifestyle. So Liz asks, has your sleep changed in any way during your life? Absolutely. I grew up with insomnia. That has changed a little bit after I graduated college and started like a full-time job and had a more regular structured schedule. I think the structure and the regularity helped me a lot, and I was finally able to get like regular nights of about 7 hours of sleep. Do you think you could describe or give examples of what it's like for you to hyperfocus? Hyperfocus is another one of those examples where I will bring it up to people who don't have ADHD. They'll say things like, oh, like me too. Like I get really into like, it's like kind of like a flow state, right? Where I get really focused on something and then I'm like immersed in the work, and then the time kind of flies. And then before I know it, like the workday's over and I was able to focus and get a lot of stuff done. And I'm like, no, that's not what hyperfocus is like actually. Hyperfocus for me means that I sit in one place for way too long a period of time without moving, because usually I'm focusing on, for me at least, I focus on things where they don't require a lot of movement. Back when I was really into Stardew Valley, I used to like hyper focus and play Stardew Valley for like 12 to 14 hours in one sitting. Basically, I wouldn't even get up to eat or drink or like use the bathroom, to the point where I was like leaning on my elbows here. I was like leaning on the edge of the table right here. I developed bruising over here and then eventually like scarred for a few months. And I just had like a brown patch here. But like that's what hyperfocus is like. Like you don't have control over it. Can I quickly ask how medication affects the hyperfocusing? I don't think I hyperfocus as much on medication. Has listening to music been a common hyperfocus for you? No, actually. Music is just like a really major distraction for me. Like I can't do anything while listening to music unless it's lo-fi, because lo-fi is so repetitive. So Tim asks, I'm not sure if that is restless related, but do you sometimes have to clench your muscles in certain emotions? When excited, I always need to clench my muscles, like hug someone hard or clench my teeth or make fists and press them really hard to the point it sometimes hurts. I don't know if I do this consciously, but I absolutely have like a general tension tension problem. I don't grind my teeth, so I don't have an issue with teeth grinding, but I do clench my jaw a lot because I'm always anxious and stressed. Like I'm just constantly in a state of anxiety and stress. The way I guess my face reacts to that is I like clench my jaw up without realizing that I'm clenching. Are there any good coping mechanisms that help you get concentrated when talking to multiple people? I can only do that with pen and a paper, but I can't carry pen and a paper and draw while talking, while walking. I think something that's helped me that doesn't seem to bother people too much is I'll echo what they're saying back to them. And I've actually found that this is a great tip in general for people also with like social anxiety who struggle with like small talk or conversation in general, where like if someone is just like, oh man, like I had a really hard day. And if you don't know what to say to that, just be like, a hard day? And they'll be like, yeah, like, and they'll start talking about their hard day. Oh, I spilled my coffee yesterday. And you'll be like, your coffee? And they're like, yeah, like I had to mop it up. You're prompting them to continue. You're engaging in the conversation. You're keeping yourself on topic still, like your mind isn't wandering too far off and you're, you know, in tune with them. You're signaling to them that like, I'm here with you. I'm encouraging you to continue talking. This question is, I think, a follow-up from Liz, and it says, weird question, but have you ever felt the need to overcompensate your ADHD traits so that people would take you seriously? Well, I don't know if it's like exaggerating so much as I would like look for the most extreme symptoms. And I don't bring up ADHD on my own that much. Like I'll mention that I have it, but I usually don't go in depth about it unless people ask me. So usually the context is like people are asking me about my ADHD and then they're being dismissive of my responses and explanations. And in cases like that, then I'll start to reach for the extreme cases of like the bruising on my hands or like covering my hands with like pen ink when I was a child, or like the way I would practice piano, I would play one practice and then I would lay down on the piano bench for like 20 minutes and just like space out. Like those are all my slightly more extreme examples. It's the need to make it obvious for people to take it seriously. Exactly, Liz. Yeah, because I've mentioned before, I don't mask on stream at all. Yo, this sun is really just like assaulting me right now. What's your problem? Pick on someone your own size. Yo, Leo's figure on my desk right now has gorgeous, like backlit golden hour light. Hold on, I gotta share this with y'all. Fuck, where's my pixel? Where's my Google Pixel?